Hi, I'm Candi Hinson, and God has called me to start a support group, a grief group for mothers, fathers who have lost their child. And why this has been on my heart is because I have a story to tell. Jacob was born August 5th, 2001. I was very excited when I became pregnant with Jacob. I had him 6.5 weeks early because my blood pressure decided to get high. And so I had a C-section. And so he was 3 pounds and 13 ounces, but he was doing really well. And we got to go home pretty soon after he was born. At 5 months, he started losing weight and not eating. So we took him to the doctor. He thought maybe a virus, but he wanted to admit him to the hospital, and that scared me to death because this mother instinct of mine knew it was something wrong, something really wrong. So we went there, and the doctor was doing every test they could, and then that same doctor was just rubbed his head and felt his soft spot was firm. And as he was doing that, he's like, "What is wrong with you, Jacob?" And he felt that. He said, "Has that soft spot been that firm?" And I said, I don't know. And they did a scan on his head, and immediately they came back and said he's got a large tumor on his brain. This brain tumor was very aggressive. The people at Shands gave him little to no chance to live. This tumor was pretty new, as far as there's not a lot of information about it. Shands told us to basically take him home on hospice, and I couldn't give up, so we didn't. We researched, and we took him to St. Jude's Children's Hospital in Memphis. We still had a 2% chance of living. That was what they said. When we got there, things were a lot worse than we first knew. He had a tumor in his left kidney. It had to be removed. And this is after, in Shands, he had 2 major debulking of his tumor. So they had to go in twice to remove the massive tumor that had grown. So in Memphis, we did the kidney removal, and then the cancer is so aggressive that he also had a spot in his spine. The doctors kept on wanting to treat, and I was willing to do the chemo. Some people asked me how I handled the news, and I guess my first response, shock. And yes, I prayed to God. We prayed to God. Was there feelings of, why is this happening? Of course. But we just had to continue to pray because we knew it's not in our hands. And Jacob was sick for 2 years. The most difficult days with Jacob was when he was hurting, because I couldn't fix it, and the mama's supposed to fix everything, but I couldn't. During the 2 years, I did not work. Jacob was my full job, and I don't regret that for one single bit. There was just no way to work. My husband at the time worked and drove back and forth. Thankfully, there was resources that allowed us to live right next to the hospital, provided us food, transportation. Through this process, when Jacob was diagnosed, immediately I have like the best friends in the whole wide world. They were there. So many people around this community gave money. It's unbelievable. I can never thank them enough, because I survived because they gave money to our terrible situation. I don't know what I would have done without their help. I mean, they helped so much from Bonifay, and then God is awesome, because I met like some wonderful, wonderful people that were, going through the same things that I was at St. Jude. I still talk to them all the time. God just put everything in place for me. And then there was a time where they scanned him and said that he was cancer-free. So we then came home to Bonifay and celebrated. We knew there was always a possibility it could come back, because this was an aggressive tumor. He was thriving, getting chunky, and then we had to do follow-up appointments. So when we went for the follow-up, they said that he would need radiation. So he had to go through radiation on his spine. Then we went back again they let us go home, back to Bonifay after that, the radiation. And when we went back, the cancer had spread everywhere. And I knew that if that's what they said, we were done. He had been through enough. I felt bad putting him through that, but I felt like that was our only choice to keep him here. So we put him on hospice, and 2 weeks later, on January 30th, 2004, he passed away with just me and his daddy. And he looked up, and I think he was seeing heaven. Then he closed his eyes. He wasn't hurting. So I just thank God he doesn't have to worry about going to any doctors anymore. He doesn't have to hurt. And I'll see him again. I can definitely remember having to pick out a casket for him. Nothing you want to do for anybody, but especially your child. That was kind of rough. But we had everything down to a video showing his life. And at the funeral, we played that. And I honestly can't remember that much about the funeral. Just totally can't. So after Jacob passed away, basically me and my husband didn't grieve the same way. And his idea of grieving was really didn't want to see any pictures of Jacob, kind of wanted to run and ignore And I can understand that. I wanted pictures up. I wanted to talk about it. And a marriage doesn't work when you're two opposites when it comes to losing a child. And everybody grieves so differently. And that's why I think it's so important to talk to people who have been in your shoes. It might not be the same way somebody passed away, but losing a child is something you're never supposed to do. So I think a grief support for those that have lost their children, no matter if it's been 20 years, 10 years, a week ago, I don't care. You're always going to grieve your child until you're with them again. People are hurting all over our community due to grief. It has hit so many families here, especially lately with COVID. We are starting a grief support group for parents who have lost children.